What's good, everyone? It's Steve from Sneaker Tech Talk, back with another video today. And for today's video, we're going to compare the newly released Air Jordan 1 High OG Lost and Founds to all of the Air Jordan 1 High 85s that have recently released in the last couple of years as well. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so just quickly comparing the boxes. Obviously for the Lost and Founds, you do have this pre-aged box with the orange lid. These do have that sales sticker, and the size tag reads 10.5 Air Jordan 1 Retro High OG Varsity Red, Black, and Sale. And then inside the box, really quickly, you do have that handwritten receipt from Sandy Bros, and that comes inside the box along with that newspaper, and they do come with white and black laces. And then for the High 85s, they do come with the all red box, as you can see here, with the black swoosh. And this one here is from the neutral grays. And then inside the box, I tossed the white paper, but it comes with kind of this wax paper here with the Wings logo and the Jumpman on. So that's just a quick comparison as far as the boxes go for the High 85 and the recently released Air Jordan 1 High OG Lost and Founds. So I just wanted to compare these to the Air Jordan 1 High 85s. Obviously these, as far as the High 85s go, they're trying to tailor this model closer to what actually released in 1985. So without further ado, let's get started. As far as the materials go, the High 85s are more of a raw and really thick and firm and hard leather, as you can see here on the Georgetowns. Now I do have the neutral grays right here as well. It's more or less the exact same cut of leather on the neutral grays. New Beginnings pair right here, the white and varsity red pair that MJ actually wore as a PE back in 1984 or 85. So as you can see here, the leather is more or less the exact same. And then last but not least, you have the black varsity red pair from All-Star Weekend in 2020. And again, the leather here is really firm and stiff. So that does differ from most leathers on the Air Jordan 1 High OGs. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick look as far as those. But I will be comparing them to the Georgetown pair here. So without further ado, the leather on the Air Jordan 1 Lost and Founds, the red is a bit more stiff compared to what you usually get on the High OGs, sorry. And then obviously the leather here, the white leather, is kind of pre-aged or pre-cracked. Same with the black leather up top. So that's kind of how this shoe differs from the High 85s, is this leather is a lot thicker and a lot more firm, whereas this kind of has that pre-aged or pre-broken in feeling right off the bat here with the Air Jordan 1 High OG Lost and Founds. The Wings logo on the Lost and Founds, as you can see here, it is, I believe the term is embossed. So usually it was imprinted within the leather, but now it's not, and it's more similar to the High 85s, which I definitely like. I'm glad they changed that up. And then here on the High 85s, you can see more or less the exact same thing. But on the High 85s, just like in 1985, they do not have that trademark logo. Whereas on the Lost and Founds, you can see that little TM. As you can see here on the bottom of the shoes, the High 85 is a bit of a narrower cut as far as the outsole, especially across the middle here. You can see it's a bit more narrow, whereas this is a wider midsole and outsole. So that's one way that it differs. And then same thing up top. The forefoot is just a little bit more narrow here on the High 85s. And then as far as the midsole goes, the specs and just the overall detail and kind of that midfoot hump here on the High 85s, it's a lot more tailored to the originals from 1985. And then on the Lost and Founds, it's just the standard High OG midsole, so it's not the 85 look, whereas on these, you can see here, it's a lot more pronounced, the details on the midsole, versus this one being a lot less pronounced. So that is one way these two shoes differ. Moving your way up from that, we did talk about the leather already. The tongue on the high 85s, in my opinion, is a lot taller. On the high 85s, as you can see here, it extends quite a bit past the collar. And then on the Lost and Founds, it just kind of sits right at the ankle collar here. And I do kind of have it pulled up as high as I can with some paper in there and then a spring-loaded shoe tree. So the tongue on the Lost and Founds is a bit shorter. That's kind of standard across the board on all high OGs. Whereas on the 85 highs, they are a bit taller. And then I'm gonna grab a pair that is not laced, but I have the Varsity Reds here. On the inside, you do have the sizing on the 85s. So as you can see here, it's a 10.5. And then I will grab a Lost and Found that's unlaced. I did get a few pairs of these. There is no sizing on the collar, so they are keeping that strictly for the high 85s. You're not going to see that on the high OGs. I know some people were complaining about that, but this is not a high 85, it's just a high OG. So the specs and the details will be different, whereas on these, you do get that sizing on the inside. So another way that these two shoes do differ, I do have the neutral gray insole here, and the Lost and Founds is this is a very thick polyurethane insole, whereas on the Lost and Founds, it's a lot thinner, as you can see right here. It's a lot thinner. This is a Dream Cell, so it's kind of mimicking the polyurethane, but it's more eco-friendly. It's a lot more flimsy, as you can see here. To me, honestly, this is just a hunk of junk. It's really nothing special, not comfortable at all, whereas this is a lot more firm. And it actually has some arch support, and it's very thick, as you can see here. So this is the insole that I prefer, but obviously they did kind of cheap out here as far as the insole goes. And then there is some stamping here on the neutral grays. And then this one says 10.5 Dream Cell. So that's kind of what you're getting as far as the insoles go and how they differ. As far as what I like, obviously the neutral grays are a lot thicker. And then on top of the insole, you do have that sample tag as well. Here, kind of detailing the shoe. And then on the Lost and Founds, you don't get anything. They both do have Nike Air though, so that is one similarity as far as the insole goes. So another way that this shoe, the high 85, differs from the Lost and Found is under the insole, you are gonna have a board lasted portion of the shoe. So that is for some torsional rigidity as far as how they were achieving that in 1985. And then on this one here, you kind of just get that standard gray liner with the stitching around. It's not board lasted. So this kind of bends in every which way just a little bit more than the high 85s. So that is another comparison as far as what you're getting under that insole on the high 85 versus the high OG. So obviously in 1985, you did get this tag attached to this shoe with Michael Jordan kind of doing the Jumpman logo on the skyline with the Wings logo. And then it kind of breaks down the shoe inside with the air sole unit in the heel, and then the polyurethane insole as well. And it kind of gives you all of the specs as far as the shoe and just kind of details it for you inside of this pamphlet. And then on the high OGs, we have yet to see that yet, and it's no different here. You do not get that pamphlet for the Air Jordan 1 high OG, Lost and Founds. So they did update the high OG shape a bit and the swoosh, in my opinion, compared to every release before the Lost and Founds. So obviously this toe box here is a bit more slanted rather than being straight up and boxy looking. So they did update the shape a bit on the Lost and Founds. And also the swoosh is a bit more aerodynamic or similar to the high 85s in my opinion. It's not as chunky, whereas on the high 85s, you do see the swoosh. It is a lot more similar to the Lost and Founds. And then as well, the box on the high 85s is slanted as well here. So they are updating the shape on the high OGs. I think they definitely paid attention to detail as far as this Chicago colorway went. It will be interesting to see moving forward with all of the colorways that come out every year if they continue to pay attention to detail. But on this pair they definitely did, so I'm definitely happy with the release. And then obviously both pairs have the nylon tongue as well. Obviously you can see the tongue on this guy is higher like I mentioned before, and they both have that pre-aged look. So they have updated some things on the High OG, which I'm definitely happy with. So something else that differs from the High OG to the High 85 is the back of the shoe. So on the High 85s, it's a lot more straight at the very back, as you can see here on the Georgetowns. And it's going to be similar here on the PE pair from the New Beginnings pack. It's a lot more straight up and down, whereas on the High OGs, the back of the shoe definitely kind of goes inward a bit. So that is another difference as far as the overall shape of the back of the shoe. It kind of goes in a bit on the High OGs, and then on the High 85s, like I mentioned, it is a lot more straight up and down. So I think they did a pretty good job with the Lost and Founds. Nothing overly to complain about because obviously it's not a High 85. I do think for the 40th anniversary in 2 or 3 years, maybe just after that, they are going to do a High 85 Chicago, which I'll definitely be looking forward to. Because for me, I really like the raw cuts of leather that they use on the High 85s. It does take some time to break in, but once they're broken in, they feel so good. There's just more substance to this shoe right here, rather than the materials and just overall build of the High OGs. It's just a lot of a cheaper build in my opinion. One other thing I will mention is that these did retail for $180 USD, $235 here in Canada. Whereas the High 85s retail for $200 USD and $260 here in Canada. So there is a bit of a price difference, obviously being about $20 different. But for me, if I had a choice, I would pay the difference every time for a pair of High 85s because the overall build of this shoe and materials, I know a lot of people complain about the materials being raw and really stiff right out of the box. But trust me, if you wear these for a week straight, the overall comfort long term and just the longevity of the shoe is a lot more here in the High 85s than you're going to get out of the High OGs. So something else I did compare prior to filming this video is the overall collar height of the shoe, just the overall height of the shoe. And obviously you can see right here, they are more or less the exact same height as far as where the midsoles meet up, going up to the ankle collar. So there's not a ton of difference of the overall height on the High OGs versus the High 85s. As far as sizing and fit goes, I do find this shoe to be a lot more narrow than the High OGs. Obviously you could see that here on the outsole, it just being a lot more of a narrow build. But I do find the length to run true to size, and once these break in, I would say go true to size in these unless you're an extreme wide footer, maybe go up half a size. But to me, they fit the same lengthwise. It's just these ones here, the High 85s, are a lot more narrow. But I would say if you could try them on in store, go ahead. But obviously, High 85s sell out very quickly. But again, they just run a tad more narrow than your standard High OG. So for me, they fit true to size. I wear a 10.5 in both, and my toe in the 10.5 is almost at the end of the shoe. It's just right about here on both of them. So for me, I go true to size and I really have no issues at all. So that's going to do it for today's video on the Air Jordan 1 High OG versus the High 85s. As always, if you guys could like, comment, and subscribe, that helps the channel a ton. As always, if you guys can check out my Instagram at 23mj88. It is an extension of my YouTube channel with all my pickups, basketball footage, and just nostalgia as a whole. Again, thanks for watching today's video, and until next time, peace.